The Hippopotamus Who Wanted Wings. "If I had wings, this river would never see me again," shouted the hippopotamus one hot morning, splashing muddy water everywhere. The frogs jumped in fear, the fish hid under rocks, and even the lazy crocodile opened one eye and groaned. "Oh no, not this again!" The hippopotamus was tired of being a hippo. He hated his giant body, short legs, and huge mouth. Every single day he stared at the sky and wished he had been born as a bird instead. Beside the hippopotamus's river stood a tall, lonely tree. One peaceful evening, a tiny yellow bird arrived and built a nest in its branches. The bird had shiny feathers and a beautiful singing voice. Every morning the bird sang sweet songs that floated through the jungle like music. The monkeys danced happily, rabbits twitched their ears, and even the snakes stopped hissing to listen. Everyone loved the bird's singing, but the hippopotamus became more jealous every day. "Look at him," he grumbled, "flying wherever he wants while I sit here looking like a giant muddy potato." The crocodile laughed so hard he nearly swallowed a fish backward. One morning the bird flew down beside the hippopotamus and asked kindly, "Why are you always sad?" The hippopotamus sighed loudly and said, "Because you can fly and sing while I can only swim and splash in mud." The bird blinked in surprise. "But you are huge and strong. You are the best swimmer in the river." The hippopotamus rolled his eyes and muttered, "Who cares about swimming? Flying is much cooler." Soon the hippopotamus became obsessed with becoming a bird. He watched the bird soaring through the sky and hopping from branch to branch. Meanwhile, he spent his days complaining so much that even the turtles pretended to be rocks to avoid him. One sunny afternoon, the hippopotamus saw the bird singing on a high branch while all the animals clapped and cheered. At that moment he shouted, "I have decided! From today onward, I shall become a bird!" The monkeys burst into laughter and nearly fell out of the tree. But the hippopotamus was serious. He marched proudly out of the river while mud dripped from his giant belly and the ground shook under his heavy footsteps. The hippopotamus stood beside the tree and looked up confidently. "How hard can climbing be?" he muttered. The bird nervously whispered, "Very hard, especially for someone shaped like a barrel." Ignoring the warning, the hippopotamus pushed his legs against the trunk and tried climbing. He slipped immediately and crashed backward into the river with a gigantic splash. Water flew everywhere, and a monkey screamed, "It's raining river water!" The whole jungle laughed loudly, but the hippopotamus pretended not to care. "That was only practice," he announced proudly, though inside he felt terribly embarrassed. The next day, the hippopotamus returned with a new plan. He tied giant banana leaves to his sides and declared, "These are my wings." The parrots laughed so hard they nearly fainted. The hippopotamus climbed onto a rock and shouted, "Watch me fly!" He jumped into the air, flapping the banana leaves wildly. For 1 second he believed he was flying like a bird. Then gravity remembered him. Boom! The hippopotamus landed belly first in the mud. Mud exploded everywhere and covered a nearby zebra from head to toe. The zebra stared angrily and said, "Now I look like spoiled chocolate pudding." Even the bird could not stop giggling. "You do not need wings to be special," he said kindly. But the hippopotamus was too stubborn to listen to anyone. Days passed, and the hippopotamus began practicing singing every night. Unfortunately, his singing sounded like a donkey stepping on a trumpet. The wolves howled in pain, and the owls begged him to stop. One evening, the hippopotamus tried singing beside the bird. The bird's voice sounded sweet and magical, but when the hippopotamus opened his mouth, horrible sounds echoed across the jungle. Fish jumped out of the river in terror. The jungle animals rolled on the ground laughing. A tiny frog covered his ears and shouted, "The end of the world has come!" The hippopotamus's face turned bright red with embarrassment. Instead of giving up, the hippopotamus became angry. "If I cannot climb the tree," he growled, "then I will bring the tree down to me." The bird fluttered nervously and begged him not to do anything foolish. With a mighty roar, the hippopotamus charged at the tree. Thud! The tree shook violently. Again he rammed it. Thud! Coconuts fell onto the monkeys' heads. One final smash made the giant tree crash to the ground with a loud crack. The hippopotamus climbed proudly onto the fallen branches and spread his banana leaf wings. "Now I am a bird!" he shouted. Then he began singing horribly while the jungle animals laughed harder than ever before. Suddenly, tiny crying sounds came from the fallen branches. The bird's nest had fallen to the ground, and inside were 3 frightened baby birds. The bird rushed down desperately, crying, "My babies!" At that moment, the hippopotamus finally realized what he had done. His jealousy had hurt innocent creatures and destroyed something beautiful. For the first time in many days, he became completely silent. Slowly, the hippopotamus lowered his head and whispered, "I am sorry." The jungle became quiet because nobody had ever heard him apologize before. The bird looked at him sadly and said, "You forgot the gifts you already had." That same night, heavy rain caused the river to flood. Several baby animals became trapped in the strong currents and cried for help. Without hesitation, the hippopotamus jumped into the rushing water. The hippopotamus swam powerfully through the river and rescued rabbits, squirrels, and even a tiny porcupine. The jungle animals watched in amazement while the bird smiled proudly and said, "No bird could do that." The next morning, the hippopotamus used all his strength to lift the fallen tree back upright. Day after day, he carried water and protected the tree until green leaves finally returned and the bird rebuilt his nest safely. From that day on, the hippopotamus stopped wishing to be someone else. He became proud of being a hippo and happily told young animals, "The world already has many birds. What it needed was one good hippopotamus." Everyone cheered, and the hippopotamus finally understood that true happiness comes from accepting who you are. Moral of the story: never compare yourself to others. Everyone has unique talents, and when you appreciate your own strengths, you discover your true value and happiness.